My senses tell me this guy is pretty attractive.
What does attractive even mean?
Just give me a straight confirmation. Is he attractive?
He's very attractive. Huh? What? He is. It's all in the bone structure.
It's official, everybody. Paramount has decided to take on the most daunting task you could take in the Avatar The Last Airbender universe. And the only way this movie could be the next Avatar is if it masters 4 important elements: character, story, visuals, and authenticity. Only with a perfect blend of all of those can this movie possibly succeed. What's up, everybody? It's Johnny 2000, focusing on 2000s movies, media, and so much more. And we're taking nostalgia to the 20th century. You may be misconstrued by my thumbnail, but I actually really advocate for this movie. Back when it got leaked online, I was super upset, but not as upset as I was when I found out this was not coming to theaters. Yeah, this was originally announced to come to the theaters. Paramount was going to take this beloved property and actually give the fans what they wanted. Some would even argue there's more fans for this property than even the movies in the theaters today. So why in the world would they pivot to streaming? Without getting too boring and businessy, let's just say somebody else took over Paramount since this was picked up, and even after it got the spa treatment. We've seen countless horrible recreations of this series, with the most recent being the 2nd season of Avatar The Last Airbender on Netflix. And you do not need my review of this show. Just type it in on YouTube and you will find all the negative reviews yourself. Thank me later. But this time around is even more important than ever, because there's one element in Avatar that really makes it good that so many reiterations have failed to do, and we're going to get into it. First off, we know this could be good. It's been done before. They took SpongeBob to the big screen in 2004, and that was a success. So who's to say you can't take this Nickelodeon movie and make it a success? Yeah, argue with me in the comments. For me, the checklist is simple. You have to get the characters right, the story relevant to the original series, the visuals expanded upon, and the authenticity, the most important, to actually have the original creator's voice in this project. Will we get an authentic story in the Avatar universe? We've had so many examples of ways this just did not work in the past, and you know what? It's kind of obvious and ridiculous that no producer who agreed to making those movies happen realized it should be the original creators. The trailer itself concerns me right off the bat, not because of the way it's presented or what they're showing us, but mainly because a lot of the quotes that they put in this trailer is some of the praising reviews that have come out in the recent year upon reviewing the series, not necessarily going to the root of what made this show so special. I want to see quotes about how this changed somebody's view of social relationships, how this property understood them and their goals in life more than any other show on TV. Because for me, that's what makes Avatar the best. And you could already tell that the people who made this marketing campaign don't understand that. I feel like it's like LinkedIn, where you're just posting all your best achievements in your job, but little do you know, some of us do like the hiccups and bumps along the way. Avatar was perfect in its imperfection, and by imperfection, I don't mean story or characters. I mean, like, they are a creative project that had to abide by some business standards, as every project does, as this project does. The original had to do 20 episodes, then they had to fit it into 3 seasons. Like, everybody has their limitations, and really what makes art so good is how they utilize that to be a part of the story. And so far, I feel like this trailer is proving that the story is in the marketing, and we do not want a show with story in the marketing. Like, come on, guys. Everybody's older now, and I really hope they keep the characteristics that made them so lovable in the first place. I mean, I know they replaced the voice actors, but I think that's actually going to be doing well in its favor, but we'll get to that in a bit. Think of all the elements that the 2000s movies used to make a really good theatrical film. Like guest stars. Taika Waititi is featured in this film. I like it when they input guest stars randomly. It definitely is like a business tactic of the 2000s, but I'm nostalgic for that flaw in itself. the score is a little bit more mainstream with Jeremy Zucker taking it over, but honestly, yeah, he's doing a great job. And he has the original spirit of the show to begin with, so I'm not worried about that part. The animation for me is what I'm really here for. It reminds me of like Into the Spider-Verse or K-pop Demon Hunters. They're utilizing the best aspects of our newer technology and taking it back to the storytelling of the early 2000s. The peak of both industries, both decades, and actually trying to make this happen. What sold this trailer for me is the Zuko line about the guy being super attractive. I love that the story has to do with another airbender. For me, in Legend of Korra, the thing that made it work really well is bringing back unspoken voices in different tribes that Avatar existed in. You know, like the Fire Nation, the Earth Nation. A lot of the plot lines that really worked out was using the same lore, but expanding upon the characters that exist within that lore, because that is where the story gets super interesting for everybody. So hopefully the backstory of this new character is enough to keep him likable to enjoy throughout the entire movie, antagonistic enough to meet the threats that Lord Ozai had in the original series of Avatar The Last Airbender. But working on this movie for 3+ years, like, how did they not have time to sit in this and really figure out if it worked or not? The cooler thing about this generation of storytelling is that 20 years ago, we had different people working on different things. Now we have the generation that grew up with this show actually piecing it together. So fans will know right then and there in the process of production what works and what doesn't. And it's all about whether the executives are willing to listen. But you know what? The major advocates for those voices are always going to be the creators, because they are the people that say and do everything that they want. From a creative standpoint, of course. That sounded a little intense, but you know what I mean, guys. I'm impressed with how much they weaved into their story to be able to bring it back into this movie. Like, for example, seeing the spirit world seems necessary for an Avatar universe related topic. I like seeing hints that that is probably going to be brought back again. I would love to see if some of the threats and issues with the characters has to do with like life and death, because they could actually make that more intense. And by the end of the trailer, I'm feeling excited. I definitely feel like there's a lot of potential here. But you know what really kills me? What really grinds my gears is that this is not coming out in theaters as originally intended. Yeah, I said it once, and I'm going to be saying it multiple more times. Guys, this is a reflection of how you feel about the project and how the world is going to receive the project. And it's not good that the head of Paramount isn't able to understand the influence over our culture. Like, how many movies have been greenlit and given the attention that's needed that just sees this and is like, oh, that's an old Nickelodeon show. I don't think a lot of people are gonna care. Look at the views on this thing, guys. It's going to be good. Like, no, it's gonna be good. Put your back behind it and put it out. I wish I was the team at Paramount Plus, because honestly, like, this is a travesty and they're making a huge mistake. Avatar The Last Airbender has had a rough history of trying to revive itself, reboot itself. There's just so much that they've attempted to do that didn't quite work out, and we all know the reason: the original creators. We can't talk about Avatar The Last Airbender without the original creators. It's like not talking about the author when we're talking about the book. I'm talking to you, Harry Potter. The original creators are Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, who actually are the spearheads of this project. They went to Nickelodeon way back when and pitched them this idea, and it's been theirs ever since. I watched The Legend of Korra right after Avatar The Last Airbender, and while we assume it's the same as, like, everything that came after the original series, like, oh, it's not as good, it's not as in-depth, I think that show has just as much merit as the first show, and mainly because it's the original creators, and I didn't know that going into it. It's when we lost that energy by the M. Night Shyamalan movie that we really had a problem. Yeah, but that was like normal at the time. You would take you would take TV shows and turn them into movies, and then you would have a little bit of trouble translating, like maybe the main director doesn't want to add some elements, maybe they want to change some things, and that is exactly what killed that movie. And that is why it was just as disappointing when They announced the Netflix series coming to Netflix. Actually, no, I take that back. I was not disappointed. I was excited. When I heard that there was a bunch of new Avatar projects coming out about 5 or 6 years ago, I was pumped. Back then, we only had the original 3 seasons, Legend of Korra, and the first movie. So there was definitely a low bar. The new Netflix show had a lot of promise until Netflix released the fact that the creators are no longer involved. Oh my gosh. So biggest red flag, and you know what? Looking back, there was a reason for it. I gave the Netflix series a little too much slack when I watched it for the first time, because I'm comparing it to the first movie, not the original series. And when I compared it to the first movie, I felt like I really liked what they were putting out. I'm like, okay, cool, this is a great adaptation to the big screen, but really I was just comparing it to the M. Night Shyamalan movie, not the original series. When I watched the series again, I was like, oh my god, they really messed with it, and you could tell the creators' involvement had so much to do with that. It essentially felt like a fan fiction of sorts in the same universe, and of course they rebooted it, so that's kind of like their excuse to do whatever they want, and that's my excuse not to watch it. Honestly, when I saw the live-action One Piece series on Netflix, it definitely showed me that it could be done well. You can do a campy action series that's originally a cartoon and put it to live action and almost make it better. But you know what the difference between that show and Avatar is? Yeah, the original creator stayed on that one. I don't know what the situation was going on behind the scenes, but clearly it didn't work out the same way. But something that actually is working in its favor, which you wouldn't expect initially, is the changed voice actors. Yeah, it's not the original cast from the series, but that's okay because they're not kids anymore. They're not children. And they were casted a little bit more ethnically in line with what the original creators were going for, making it slightly even more authentic. I'm really no doubt that these actors are going to be even more convincing than the original cast, because the original cast gave them their blessing, and that is the sweetest thing I think I can imagine. For me personally, who is kind of like more of a tech nerd, I'm just excited this is going to be in HD 4K. Yeah, the original series had no option to get it to be that good, but this time around, we need a cinematic experience, people. Now we are familiar with the world of Avatar, and if it could work in 4:3, you better believe it's gonna work in full screen. That's why it's kind of a shame it's not going to theaters. Like, it was made to go to theaters. All the hardworking people that worked on this wanted this to go to theaters. And it's kind of a slap in the face to all the fans that it's not. Plot-wise, we're definitely dangling on a tight rope with perfection here, because the first 3 seasons of the show is its main draw. The few-month time period where Aang has to take down the Fire Lord. Something about that beginning, middle, and end arc, the limitation of it all, is where the most creativity came out for it. My biggest argument against my own point on this is the fact that they continued a comic book series with Avatar The Last Airbender after the show's original arc. So that means the animators and writers definitely had something intentional back from that original era. So you can't argue this isn't a part of the original show. It's a way of being new and old at the same time, appealing to new fans and old fans alike. The movie description is definitely unique. It doesn't feel like it's pulling from any of the original properties that might have been written or made in the 2000s, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If anything, the writers could do a great job at working to use the mainstream in its favor to actually make a more unique story. I am worried about, like, the balance between main characters, like having almost like an hour and a half, a 2-hour movie, like, you don't really get a lot of time to explore multiple people's arcs. And Zuko, out of anybody, had an arc that was kind of in the back seat for the most of the series, but then it became at the forefront at the end of it, which made it so unique. And that's something that, like, we all like about the original series. Imagine if the first season just started us off with Zuko at the beginning of his character arc, and we got to see him every second of the episode. Like, he would have matured too fast for us, and that's not what we liked about the original series. So with Toph, Katara, Zuko, and all of these characters at the same time having to have a beginning, middle, and end, I hope they don't kind of retract from one another. Aang is the most important storyline, so clearly that will be the anchor. And I hope whatever lessons are incorporated within this kind of bring us back to the Avatar state. I feel like the Avatar state in the original series, like this moment where you're reaching perfect balance of all your chakras and emotion and logic, and everything just falls into place. That's the beauty of the original story. It don't have to change too much about its core theme to actually make a good Avatar story. And as long as Aang is the one going on that journey, and we can interweave the other characters into those moments, that's going to be really important. That's why I need to know what these other characters are going to be going through, and if it's going to be relevant enough to Aang. One of the most interesting things I've been thinking about Avatar The Last Airbender is that the original show came out and nobody really appreciated it. Sure, you saw the occasional DVDs at Blockbuster, but I think there's this special thing about 2000s cartoons where they do good on their own terms. And since Avatar was originally released, it seems like it's gotten so much praise, so much assurance. There's not that need on the writer and animators end to prove themselves as much anymore. Not saying that they don't feel that way, but there's just something about when a project hits the mainstream that you can't deny there's a little bit of fluff that goes into it. And that's what my biggest fear is for this movie. Are things going to cater too much to the audience? Are they going to lose their sense of trying to prove themselves to us? And then will we lose some of its authenticity in that process? And that's something that's really important to me, is the authenticity of it all. But what did you guys think of the overall trailer, the feel of it all, the description? There's so much to dive into about this new movie that, I don't know, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm definitely going to see it when it comes out, but I'm not seeing it the first night. If it was a movie theater, I swear I would be out, lined up at that door exactly when it releases. But you know what? Since they're not taking it seriously, maybe I'm not. But then again, I do want it to do success. I want them to regret not putting it in theaters. I know K-pop Demon Hunters did something similar. They released it and then later released it in theaters, which I don't know if that's what the president is planning on doing, but if they are, that's kind of a shady move anyway. Yeah, I would love to know your guys' thoughts, opinions, comments on this series, maybe even the original series, or if you want to trash the Netflix series, go ahead. But I'm not accepting anything that's not those options I just gave you guys, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Johnny2000, and if you like 2000s content, I'm talking old shows like Danny Phantom, Fairly Odd Parents, even Cartoon Network, I think you'd really like my channel, Johnny Tunes. I do a retrospective on every season of individual shows with a general thesis and actually break down what makes the season in its entirety really good. And if you like this show, you'll like that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I can't wait to have this movie come out and see it all at the same time. Thank you guys, and have a great day.